So I pushed out my baby within 90 minutes of having my very first contraction. And I want to tell you about my labor story because it was a very quick, very precipitous labor. And if you're somebody who is trying to hear positive birth stories, if you're trying to go without an epidural, or if you're trying to have epidural, if you're thinking about like all the hypnobirthing, meditation, visualization, I think that this is a really good story for you, because even though it was quick and things were unexpected, there are lots of little things that happened that made me very glad that I prepared the way that I did. Now, if you don't know, my name is Oriana. I'm a pelvic health physical therapist assistant, and I love birth prep. That is my niche. I love teaching people how to prepare for birth. I love thinking about things holistically. I love thinking about the physiological nature of birth. I love thinking about the biomechanics of what the pelvis does. How does baby get through the pelvis? I'm obsessed with that stuff. And it's I don't know, it's become like a mission of mine just to make sure that women feel like they are cared for during that really vulnerable time of their lives and they're not just walking in blind, you know? So I love birth prep. And of course, I'm going to apply all the birth prep that I know to my own self, right? Now, the due date that the baby that I was pregnant with, the due date was the same exact due date as my son. And I went into spontaneous labor with my son. So I was really nervous that I was going to have the same birthday for the baby that I was, carrying. And I was really, really nervous about that. So I didn't start birth prep stuff till about 38 weeks with my son, my oldest. So right at 36 weeks, I started all the birth prep stuff immediately. Everything except for the mile circuit. The mile circuit I started at 37 weeks because I just wanted to wait a little bit. So yeah, I was doing all the things, but during this time, it was also a very, very stressful time. We were trying to get the house ready for the baby, but we were also trying to celebrate my son's birthday early, just in case the baby came early. My husband's a teacher, my son's in preschool, but they were on spring break at the same time. So there was a solid week where I had no alone time, no relaxation time. And my son, he just turned 3. So he's a lot of energy right now. It's very much I would try to relax, and then he would just come barreling through the door, and I'm I'm going to go into labor once these fools leave the house, which is exactly what happened. So I was doing all the things, and I was getting a little bit nervous. I was getting a little frustrated, not frustrated, but a little flustered. I really, 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 really want to make sure that I'm home for my son's birthday. My son, that matters for the age that he is. It's just it was really stressing me out, but I was trying to relax. I was trying to surrender, which is my big theme whenever it comes to labor and birth prep. I was just trying to surrender, trying to promote oxytocin, all that jazz. And whenever I was working, because my job is so physically demanding, when I was working, I was having Braxton Hicks contractions all the time. And because I'm 35, I get antenatal testing every single week, which is kind of nice because then I just get to monitor baby. So once I hit 36 weeks, I was able to go to the hospital once a week, so that way they can monitor the baby. And guess what? No contractions. Once I stopped working, contractions stopped. And I was dang it. I think I need this baby to come now. I need the baby to come soon. And I'm doing all the right stuff. And I'm trying to go with the flow. And at 39 weeks, my doctor was do you want a membrane sweep? And I'm yeah, sure. Between 38 to 39 weeks, I dilated. I was already 50% effaced. And I was yeah, sure, whatever, why not? I know that the dilation number, and I know that membrane sweeps, that doesn't matter unless your body's actually ready, So on that Friday, I got the membrane sweep. I had a lot of blood the next day, but my doctor warned me that would be okay. And then the next few days, I lost all of my mucus plug. It was crazy. I was texting my doula. I was just I feel labor is coming because I'm losing literally all the mucus plug that there is. How is there still more? This is insane. It's kind of crazy. But again, no contractions. No signs, nothing. So my husband and my son went back to school that Monday that they went back to school. It was still a pretty stressful day. There were still things that we had to do that day. So took care of those things. But that Tuesday, I finally had the ability to relax. I was doing my puzzle, watching the show Traders. I was able to go get my favorite pancakes. I went and bought myself some crystals. I saged my house. I had a good therapy session. Of course, I did the mile circuit, nipple stimulation, all that stuff. But I just had a day where I just got to do things that I love, that I enjoy, things that I like to do whenever it's private. And so, yeah, that night, my husband and I was laying down on the couch, and I felt like a really mild contraction, like mild contraction. 0 to 10 out of pain, it'd be like a 0.5. So it was literally nothing. Very mild. And I was like, oh, okay, like prodromal labor can happen. Maybe labor will happen tomorrow. And in the back of my head, I thought I was going to have the baby on the 7th or the 8th. I ended up having my son on the 8th, but in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna have the baby on the 7th. And so I was just trying to like surrender to the fact that the 7th was like practically done. It was like 8 o'clock at night. Nothing was happening. I was like, I'm not going to go into labor today. It's okay. Whatever. And at this point in pregnancy, like every few hours, like every 3 hours, I'd wake up to have to go pee in the middle of the night. But for some reason on this night, we went to bed at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, I think. And every hour on the half hour, I woke up having a pee, like really bad. So whatever. So 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, like it was just waking up constantly to go pee. So at 2:30, I wake up, I come back, I lay down in bed, and I feel a contraction. And for me, like I don't have a lot of pelvic tension. So when people describe contractions as like a period cramp, I don't get that. And I think it's because I don't have like a ton of pelvic tension. What it feels like to me, it feels like a really slow, like diarrhea cramp, like one of those where you're just like, oh, this doesn't feel good. I feel like I'm gonna be sick. I think I need to go sit on the toilet. That's what it feels like to me, and it builds up and then it goes away. So I felt that, and I knew what time it was in my head because of the fact that I kept looking at my watch every time I had to get up and go pee. So I knew what time it was. And then a few minutes later, I have another contraction. So I start to count how many seconds it was, and it was over a minute long. And I looked at my watch and I was like, oh, that was a few minutes like later. Then a few minutes later, I look at my watch again. And I'm like, I'm having another contraction. So I had 3 contractions back to back to back, 3 minutes apart, that were pretty strong, like about a 3 out of 10, a minute each. And so I told my husband, I was like, I think I'm having contractions. I think we need to call the doula. And this is where things just like really start to speed up. Okay. So just know that going into labor, I was envisioning that everything was going to be calm, relaxed. My last labor was almost 48 hours. It took forever, but I got to 7 centimeters on my own, and I was able to like hold that for hours and hours until I finally like was too tired and I got an epidural. So this time I was like, second time labors, my doula said we focus on how much pressure the mom is having, because second time labors can be so fast. So if you're having a lot of pressure, then it's time to go to the hospital. Otherwise, don't worry about like the contractions so much. And I was like, okay, this labor is going to be like 8 hours or like 6 hours long. Like it's going to be chill. So I obviously had my little birth combs. I had my rebozo. I had the heating pad. I had the TENS unit. I literally had everything ready to go. And I was like, cool, I'm going to like surrender. I have the hypnobirthing chosen. Like I'm good to go. So my husband calls a doula, and he's on the phone with her on speakerphone. And she goes, okay, well, how is she feeling? I live an hour away, so let me know what you guys want to do. We can either go straight to the hospital or you can stay here. But she's like, labor is probably, like the baby coming is probably hours away. And I was like, okay. But as I'm standing there, I start to get the labor shakes. My legs literally started to shake. And so I said that. I was like, I'm already having labor shakes. And she goes, okay, well, go get something to eat. I'm going to start to get ready, and you guys let me know what you want to do. This is where things get like stressful, because it's 2:30 in the morning. My dog is a tough dog, and like we can't just like have anybody in the house whenever he's here, and we don't have like a yard to put him in. So he's a hard dog. So the plan was for my husband to drive the dog to my mother-in-law's house. She's 20 minutes away. So it's 20-minute there, 20-minute back. That's 40 minutes. And the contractions were happening like so quickly. And not only that, and I was feeling like every time I had a contraction, I felt like I had to pee or poop a little bit, which is that pressure. So I was like, I feel like we need to go to the hospital, but I'm not sure yet. The other thing is that my friend was going to come over and babysit our son while, we had the baby and stuff. And she wasn't picking up her phone, which is okay. The poor thing was really tired, but she wasn't picking up her phone. And so we didn't know what to do. And so I was like stressing about that. Like, I need somebody to come here so that way they can like be with my son. That way I can go to the hospital. I'm going to grab some water really quick. Okay, got my water. So I'm like stressing about that. I'm trying to eat stuff. I'm like packing my last little bit of like toiletries. Like everything's like packed. I just had this little post-it note of all the important things that like I couldn't pack until it was time, So I'm getting everything into the suitcase. my legs are shaking, and I'm like starting to panic a little bit. And I had the gentle hypnobirthing contraction timer app. And with that app, it's a contraction timer. So like while you're having the contraction, you can have guidance, and then it keeps track of the contractions for you. So I decided to do that, and I decided to listen to the guidance on it. And I'm sitting on my exercise ball in my room, just trying to like, and I just allowed the contraction to overcome me. And in that moment, I was like, this is so intense. This is too intense. We need to go now. Like, we need to go to the hospital now. So I called the doula. I'm having another contraction. She doesn't know this at the time, but I was having another contraction while I'm talking to her. And then at one point, and I'm telling her like, hey, I'm not sure. She goes, I really think labor is out, or birth is hours away. You should get into the shower. And I was like, just give me a second, at like the peak of my contraction. And then afterwards I start talking to her again. She goes, see, the contraction was only like 20 seconds long. And when I told her later on, I was like, I was actually having a contraction the whole time. She was like, oh, you're handling it really well. And I was like, yeah. And so yeah, as soon as like we get our neighbor was really helpful. He came upstairs to just like be in our house until my sister-in-law came, until my friend woke up. So like we got all that figured out for my son. So my son's now taken care of. And I was like, we need to go to the hospital now. Like, let's go. I walked down. It was funny because my husband was like, okay, are you sure? And I just start walking out the door. Like, I just literally was like, we're going. And then I get to the bottom of the stairs, and I like literally can't move because I'm having a contraction. We get into the car, and he said he realized in that moment, like, oh, it's go time. And so we're in the car. I put on spa music. He calls the doula, and he goes, we're going straight to the hospital. We'll see you there. And I could tell that like, this is where like everything that I practice, even though the labor wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, everything that I practiced still was extremely helpful, right? So I put on the relaxing music because I knew that either I wanted to listen to relaxing music or I wanted to listen to hypnobirthing. So I'm listening to the relaxing music. I am having a hard time relaxing during the contractions, but I said in between the contractions, I need to relax. During the contractions, I would say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But then afterwards, I would be like, I need to calm down. I need to relax, right? We get to the hospital, and basically from here on out, I'm like constantly dropping to the floor. I don't know what was going on, but like as soon as we drive up, and as soon as I get in the doors, like in the sliding glass doors, I drop down to the ground. I'm having a contraction, and they get me into the wheelchair. And the wheelchair was just so uncomfortable. And so as soon as they get me upstairs to triage, I immediately drop down to the floor again because I was just like so uncomfortable. The nurses come running through, and they're like, what number baby is this? I'm like, this is my second labor. They're like, we don't want you to have the baby on the floor. Let's get you into a room. And I'm like, okay, fine. So they like wheel me into there. They're like, can we take off your clothes? I'm like, I don't care. They measured me, and I was 8 centimeters, and they're like, baby's almost here. And I remember in that moment, I was like, I'm in transition. This is why this is so hard. Like, I'm literally like at the point of transition, and this is why I can't tolerate this right now. But when they said baby is almost here, I said out loud, like, every contraction gets me closer to baby. So I was able to like recall my affirmations that I had practiced so much, They wheel me upstairs, and it's funny because I was so sweaty and so hot, and I don't think that they have the AC blasting, but I remember as they were like walking through, I just felt like a cool breeze, and I said, oh, that feels so good. And then whenever we got into the room, I just dropped down to the floor again. Like, I don't know why that's where my brain went. My brain just wanted to be down on my hands and knees on the floor. Like, that's where I wanted to be. I actually have like a huge bruise right where they were trying to get like an IV in me, but I just couldn't. They like had to monitor the baby. So they're like putting the baby monitor up against my belly, and one of the nurses is just holding it there. One of the nurses did like sacral counter pressure on my lower back, which felt phenomenal during my contractions. That was really, really, really helpful. And then they're like, we think that you're going to be a lot more comfortable if you get onto the bed. And one thing that I remember in just like knowing birth prep and knowing like, labor and stuff is that when a woman's about to push, she walks up on her tippy toes. And so when they like helped me up, I remember walking on my tippy toes. And I thought to myself like, oh, I'm about to push. Like, I'm about to start pushing. And so I'm like on like a tabletop position, kind of leaning over the bed, like the bed is reclined, and I'm like leaning over it. And And they're like, let's get you on your side. Let's get you on your side. My doula comes running in and she has this look on her face like, oh, you poor baby. Like, you poor thing. She's trying to calm me down. I'm like butt naked. Like, there's no clothes on. I'm so hot and sweaty. My body just starts to push. And they're like, stop pushing. You're not fully dilated yet. You don't want to tear your cervix. And in that moment, I was like, oh yeah, I had a patient recently tear her cervix and I don't want to do that. So I was able to like calm down in that moment. My water breaks at some point. I don't remember when it broke, but I remember feeling it break. And I remember being like, oh, my water just broke. And they're like, yeah. I remember at one point I was like, I feel like I have to pee. They're like, go pee right here on the bed. And I was like, I can't. And they finally get me to lay on my side. And then my body could finally relax. Like, finally it could relax, which is, I think I needed that the whole entire time. But like the whole labor itself was just so stressful from beginning to end because of like trying to figure out my son and like the car ride and all that stuff. So I'm laying on my side. I finally relax, and my doula has like a audio recording of this basically. So I'm able to hear all of it, and I am able to calm down. I'm able to like breathe. I'm able to just stay nice and steady, relax my body. I did the little like horse lips when a contraction would come, the little, right? I would do that. I was screaming a little bit, and then my doula would be like, bring that down, and I would. And then there was like one point where they're like, hold up your leg. I was like, you hold it for me. They're like, no, you need to hold it. I was like, in between contractions, I need you to hold it. And then they're like, hey, the baby is almost here. The baby isn't tolerating the contractions very well. You got to push the baby out. And when I heard that, I immediately was like, all right, got this. I pushed the baby out in like, his name is Jace, by the way. I pushed him out in like 4 to 5 pushes. And how I did it was by grunting, because I was kind of like screaming a little bit. And when my doula was like, hey, like the nurse was like, hold your breath. And I'm like, I'm not going to hold my breath. That's like literally what I tell everybody not to do. I'm not going to hold my breath. I didn't need to, but my doula was like, grunt that baby down, like use that energy and like push that baby down. The nurses were like, you feel that sensation of that you need to poop, like go ahead and push that baby out, like lean into that. And there's even one point in the audio where I said like, I want an epidural. I don't want to do this. I can't do this. And they're like, you're doing it. You're doing it. The baby's right here. You're doing it. At one point I'm like, I feel the ring of fire. And I knew in that moment that I needed to like relax because I had the ring of fire. So you're supposed to slow down. But like, because of what they said about the baby's heart rate, I just was like, I don't care. I'm pushing. And the sounds that came out of my mouth to push my son out were really intense. And I will never share that audio with anybody. I can't believe I made those sounds. But my son came out in a few pushes, and I'm really proud because I like barely tore. Whenever a woman has a quick labor like that, whenever she pushes really, really quickly, or if she doesn't have an epidural and things are just really tense, then the chances of tearing or the significance of that tear is higher. So I only had a grade 1. And like I said, I started labor at 2:30 in the morning, and my son was born at 4:07 in the morning. So literally 97 minutes of labor total, which is terrifying because if I ever get pregnant again, I feel like I need to just live at the hospital during that last month. I don't know. Maybe I just did my birth prep stuff a little bit too well. Maybe it was just like in too good of a spot. I don't know. But the whole story is just that like, if you want an epidural, you might not get it, right? So understanding how labor works is going to help you tremendously. If you want a calm, relaxing birth, but circumstances don't allow that, your prep for it is still going to help out a ton, because you're still going to be able to have these little moments where you can recall all the stuff that you prepped. Like there were moments where I remembered my breathing. There were moments where I remembered about the moaning. I remember when I walked into the hospital room, I immediately was like, I want the lights down. Like I want it dark in here, because I knew that I wanted a dark environment. So you have to prep for labor in so many different ways. It's a mental prep. It's a physical prep. It's an emotional prep. And even if things don't go exactly the way that you planned it, that prep goes really, really far. So I hope that the story is helpful and motivating. We're doing really, really well over here. My son's so sweet, and my other son is doing such a good job with him. And I'll get all of the rest of my pregnancy content up that I batch recorded ahead of time. So be on the lookout for that. And let me know how your labor goes when you have it. Okay? Thanks. Bye.